Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. Very important day today for Bitcoin, the S&P 500, Solana, the markets in general, as we are just starting a new monthly candle, and all eyes are pretty much going to be on the monthly for Bitcoin and the monthly for the S&P 500. So we're going to dive into the lower time frames and talk about what to expect. So over on the daily time frame from yesterday, it is looking pretty good over on Bitcoin at this moment in time. We did have a bounce from this kind of secondary low that was placed in on the 18th of March, and we have started to have a pushback up to the upside. Now, this is still very, very early days, and you have to remember this is a very new range for Bitcoin, which we previously have not traded in. So we are starting to tighten up this range. We did have lows over here. We've started to make much more touch points on this level of support, which is looking good. We're tightening up the range, kind of building up momentum, figuring out where we're going to be going to next. And the thing that I like about on this setup right now on the lower time frames is it's Tuesday and we've already filled the CME gap from over the weekend. So Bitcoin, the S&P 500, basically all the markets have free reign right now to figure out where the next move is coming. And this is super, super important over the next couple of days, over the next week or so, because I really think that how the monthly starts to shape up over the next couple of days or the next week is really going to determine probably where we're going to be moving for the next month or so. So looking over on the S&P 500, because Bitcoin right now just looks like it's emulating the S&P 500 and waiting for the S&P 500 to have more clarity. And this is the setup that we've got at this moment in time. Over on the daily, you can see from Monday, we bounced off that lower level of support and we're coming back to, in my opinion right now, the most important level. This box over here is pretty much going to decide if we're going back down, getting rejected from this and taking another massive leg to the downside, or if we manage to hold it and start to push back up, probably solidifying that that was the bottom. So all eyes on this chart right now. S&P 500 is at a super, super critical range right now. You really want to see this trading at / above $5.6 thousand. I personally want to see it push back above these prior resistances, although these are kind of old levels of support. However, I still think that they're going to be super, super monumental, and getting above this kind of heart range that we're trading in right now, really, really important. If we're looking at the lower time frames on the E-mini futures, because as of the time of recording, the S&P 500 has only been open for about 15 minutes or so, according to the New York Times. So S&P 500, the E-mini futures have been pushing up and they are coming into that same area of resistance. So how we respond to this box is really going to set the pace for the next week. That's going to bleed into the monthly. Everything right now, all eyes on kind of how we respond to these levels and how the monthly time frame starts to shape up. Over on the VIX, there is potentially some insights that this could have already marked the local bottom for the S&P 500. If we come over here, you can see there was a local low placed in around about the 13th of March, and we just got done placing in another local low, solidifying this double bottom. Over on the VIX, you can see here, 10th of March to the 11th of March, this is when the first top was in on the VIX, correlating to the low over here. Over on the VIX as well, you can see, 31st of March, past couple of days, we have been topping out on the VIX, and it looks like we're trying to print a higher low at this moment in time, with the VIX coming down to the downside, and that also correlating to the start of a green candle on both the SPX and Bitcoin. This is a new white candle for myself. I revamped the charts. I got kind of annoyed of the green and yellow candles and all the horizontal and vertical rays and the gradient. So let me know if you prefer these charts. I think this makes things just look so much more simple for myself. But yeah, that's what we're looking at right now. Potentially something like a double top or a macro lower high on the VIX, bringing some clarity back into the higher time frames. Bitcoin as well, just like the S&P 500 is doing, is trading at a very, very important kind of middle range. This is, once again, this is back in neutral territory. This isn't bullish, this isn't bearish. This is the neutral zone. If we come back down to this level, that's bearish. If we come back up to this level, that's bullish and probably telling us that we've got the bottom marked in. So we're very neutral right now. It's hard to have a bias extremely bullish or a bias extremely bearish at this range. You really just want to react for the most part and see where things go from there, which is why we've been kind of probably staying out of leverage trades until we've got a little bit more clarity is probably the right thing to do. I'm personally in a small Bitcoin long that we talked about in the previous video. I do have more bullish confidence rather than bearish confidence at this moment in time, just based on how we're starting to see the monthly time frame shape up. However, we'll see how that pans out. But for Bitcoin 4-hour time frame, this is the range that we talked about on the daily time frame, but you can see zoomed in on the 4-hour, we're starting to tighten up this range. You know, we've kind of dipped beneath this mini range over here that we traded in. We found this level of support, and while this, you know, there's many kind of horizontal lines that you can draw across this. This could be shaped up and drawn so many different ways to so many different touch points, and you can redraw it so many ways to either give it kind of like a bearish bias like this, or potentially, you know, something like a bullish bias like this. So really, I'm just looking at the center of the range right now. That's what we're trading in. We're trading in the middle of it. You can see VPVR over here. This region right now for Bitcoin 83,800, that's where the majority of the volume has been traded within this range. And, you know, beneath that or above that, you can see ping pong movements sending it quite higher. So another reason why us being in neutral territory right now, you really want to see continuation for the rest of the week, because if we don't and we come back down to the bottom of these ranges, we're probably going to come down to 76, because there's only so many times that we can come back down to around about 81,200 and continue to hold this level. So kind of all eyes on what happens next, really. I wouldn't be doing anything dramatic. I wouldn't be changing any drastic positions at this moment in time. We're in very, very neutral territory here, and we're about to find out whether this macro low over on the 11th of March at 76k was the bottom, or if we're going to roll back down to it. If you ask me, in my personal opinion, I'm very, very neutral right now, but my kind of gut feeling is that we could potentially lollygag within this range for a bit before coming up a little bit higher, and that's where the bullish kind of confidence would really resume above 90k like we talked about. There's not a whole lot that we can be trading around until, what was it, 97k, something like that, 618 Fibonacci, basically 96k. We've also got huge volume traded over on these regions. If we draw it like this, you can see, I think that comes into contact with the 618 very, very nicely. So again, it's pretty much the same story that we've been talking about. We need to get above 90k. Right now, we're not overly bullish, we're not overly bearish. You can see that we're kind of coiling up in this range, which is good. From over the weekend, we've established this low one more time. We're tightening up the range, building momentum, deciding where the next move is going to take place. So how we respond to this level in the middle of this trend right now today and for the next couple of days, super, super important. Again, it's a little bit boring. Don't have a super bullish, don't have a super bearish bias at this moment in time. You really want to be reacting, not predicting so much. But that's basically where we stand. Monthly time frame for Bitcoin though, like, regardless of whether we go back to 76 or not, things still look super, super good on the higher time frames. On the monthly, you can actually see for the past 2 months, we've closed 2 monthly candles on the 1.236 Fibonacci extension from the previous all-time high back in 2021. We're really, really trying to hold the 0.236 as support at approximately 81,700. So that is a good sign. The monthly is starting to turn green, although bear in mind it hasn't been open too long, so don't want to be too preemptive with that one. And the S&P 500 as well, really, really struggling, but trying to start to turn the monthly into a green, or for myself, a white candle. So S&P 500, really want to see it get above probably, I'd say 5.7 to be super safe. Keep your eyes on 5.7 and how we react to 5.6. That's super important. And for Bitcoin specifically, again, it's going to be 90k, but to be honest, if we can trade around kind of 85, 86k above the heart line of this range and then flip this as support and push back up, because like I said, you can draw this box so many different ways from these peaks over here. If I'm just targeting the peaks, right here, you can see that we are kind of running up to resistance there. Like I mentioned, you can draw this in so many ways though. If we draw this down to some of the lows and candle closes, which is probably how I would draw it, we're very neutral. So not super exciting, unfortunately. That's why I'm saying you have to react. We have to see how we're trading within this range. You want to see Bitcoin get above kind of 84K as soon as possible and start to full send it up to about 90K from that region. And then that's going to give us a lot more clarity on the higher time frames, on the monthly, on how things are going to go from there. So not a super huge update from our previous videos. Once again, still neutral, still trading within the range. The good thing is we filled the CME gap from last week over the weekend, and we're tightening up this range with a higher low, or at least higher low from this range. So in my opinion, that's enough kind of cause for me to believe that, you know, the neutral bias is moving maybe 55% bullish, 45% bearish. But all in all, I'd be kind of reacting, and especially keeping your eyes on the S&P 500, because this is the market leader right now. This is what's going to decide the next move. And right now, the S&P 500 is trying its hardest to not have this resistance box over here, support box, whatever you want to call it, this area of super importance. We're trying not to flip this as resistance. So keep your eyes on the S&P 500. Above 5.6 is good. 5.7 would really add a lot more clarity into this market. And until we have that clarity, it's going to be the same story. So potentially no daily updates until we've got a little bit more development, until we've got a little bit more of a range that we're working with, and we'll take it from there. Over on Solana, macro again, it's still looking really good in my opinion. We're holding this box that we want to be holding. The only thing is, again, this kind of ties down to the S&P 500. If Bitcoin kind of falls back to the bottom of this range, gets rejected from the heart line that we're trading at right now, if the S&P 500 gets rejected from this range and comes back down here, it's probably going to be one more lower low for the S&P 500 and for Bitcoin, which is going to be devastating for Solana, currently at around about $130. Next area of support to the downside is going to be around about 110. Then we've got psychological levels at $100. So this is why it's super important at this range. If we don't get the kind of response that we want and this rolls back down, that could mean, you know, 30% drops for Solana. This could mean Bitcoin coming back down, and hopefully at this point, kind of the worst case scenario would be a double bottom, which is about an 8% drop. Once again, keep your eyes on this range. Keep your eyes on how we respond this week to the heart line that we're trading at right now. My bias is slightly more bullish than bearish. All in all, super neutral until we're out of this range. Lower time frames for Solana, we are flipping above a resistance line. So if we do get that positive response that we want to see from the S&P 500 and Bitcoin, this could mean really sharp moves back to the upside for Solana. Up to $180 would be the first kind of price target that I've got my eyes on. 618 fib, $225. And, you know, at this point, haven't spent a ton of time trading around these areas. These kind of touch points are quite old. So once again, $180, we already mentioned that price target. Anything above that is probably going to ping pong us back up to all-time highs. So that's what I've got my eyes on for Solana right now. Just staking Solana, that's, you know, the safest bet that you could have in altcoins at this moment in time, in my opinion. All is also looking really good. Same kind of situation as Bitcoin, although really different chart actually. You know, we had kind of the lows that were the worst case scenario, and we've started to tidy up the range, trading within a slightly higher low range, and that's the same thing that we're seeing over on all. We haven't come down to revisit the lows. We're at this range right now, tidying up, creating this higher kind of support structure, and we're holding the support line for the most recent uptrend that we've been in since the beginning of March, so for almost a month now, and we're starting to flip above this previous resistance. And there's also some really exciting developments coming for all, and I've actually got private access to the early beta for the for the V2 mining app over on Ore, and I've tried it out a tiny bit. I'm actually going to make a separate video about this and start mining, leave it for 24 hours, go through this, talk about the staking and everything like that. Like, I'm not going to show you too much right now, but that video is something that's going to be coming up soon, where I'm going to do a quick review of the new Ore V2 app, which is coming very, very soon. Because if you're anything like myself, potentially, I know there's a lot of people that are like myself, and potentially you're really shit at coding. You don't know how to download Rust and go on all these scripts, and I'm terrible at doing stuff like that. I literally cannot do that. I've tried to mine Ore before. I'm not by any means kind of a coder, or even following the tutorials was really horrible for myself. So I know a lot of people are waiting for the app to come out, and that's going to bring kind of a lot of excitement back into the ecosystem, and that's what I think a lot of people are waiting for at this moment in time. So yeah, anyway, exciting things going on behind the scenes at Ore that I'm super excited for, and I think these levels right now at $30 are an absolute no-brainer. I would not be surprised if we're trading around about $100, not too far out from here, maybe a few weeks away, but it all depends on what happens for Bitcoin and the S&P 500 right now. This is a super, super crucial day and week pending for these markets. New monthly open. If we start to slip down just for the next few days, that's going to look horrible on the monthly time frame. And again, we're not really at a price where we can afford to slip down right now. We are trading at super, super crucial levels, and if we do come down from these levels, then there's only so many more times we can hug the next support box to the downside before things start to kind of shift to inevitably, okay, maybe we're going for one more low. So that's where we sit right now, trading at heart lines for pretty much all of these ranges at this moment in time. I lean slightly more bullish than bearish, but let's see how this week pans out, and let's see how that bleeds into the higher time frames. When we do have a little bit more clarity around this, I'll give you an update. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and a comment. Also, let me know, what do you think of the new charts? I personally prefer them. I'm not the biggest fan of the green and red and then all of the kind of horizontal and vertical lines on the screen. I think this is just so much more black and white, easy to read the charts, and just straight to the point without noise in the background. So let me know what you think anyway. Smash like, comment for the algo. See you in the next one. I'm out. Peace.